The Call of Duty. Dr. Ayanna Rivers had always believed in the sanctity of life and the power of empathy. From her childhood days in a small underserved town in Georgia, she dreamed of becoming a doctor who would treat every patient with dignity, regardless of their background. Tonight, as she stepped into the opulent halls of Street Clare Hospital, her dreams seemed both realized and compromised. The hospital's gleaming marble floors and modern artwork were a stark contrast to the community clinic where she had begun her career, treating patients who could barely afford basic care. The nurses' station buzzed with activity, the night shift already in full swing. Ayanna exchanged a nod with Leela, a seasoned nurse who had become both a colleague and a confidant. "Evening, Dr. Rivers," Leila greeted, a knowing smile on her face. "You're walking into chaos tonight. Nothing new, right?" Ayanna replied with a wry grin, though her eyes betrayed her exhaustion. Leila handed her a chart. "We've got a particularly tough case in room 314. A pregnant woman, Olivia Carter, came in about an hour ago. She's in her third trimester and experiencing severe complications. Blood pressure is through the roof, and the baby's heart rate is erratic." Ayanna's brow furrowed. "And the attending on call?" Dr. Branson took one look at her chart and decided to wait it out. "Figures she's not a VIP," Leela said, her voice laced with frustration. Ayanna's jaw tightened. She had seen this pattern too many times. At Street Clare, patients in the VIP wing, often wealthy donors or high-profile individuals, received immediate attention, while others, like Olivia, were left to wait. It was an unspoken rule, one Ayanna despised but couldn't openly challenge without risking her career. Without hesitation, Ayanna made her way to room 314. Inside, she found Olivia lying on the bed, her face pale and contorted with pain. Her husband, Ethan, stood by her side, his hands trembling as he held hers. "Dr. Rivers," Ayanna introduced herself, her voice calm and soothing. "I'll be taking care of you tonight." Olivia tried to speak but winced instead, clutching her belly. Ethan stepped forward. "Doctor, please. I don't know what's happening, but she's in so much pain. Can you help her?" Ayanna placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "I'm here to help. Let me take a look." She quickly reviewed Olivia's chart and ran a series of tests. The results confirmed her worst fears. Olivia was experiencing severe preeclampsia, a condition that could lead to seizures, organ failure, or even death if not addressed immediately. The baby's heart rate was dangerously low, indicating distress. "This is critical," Ayanna said, her tone firm but empathetic. "We need to perform an emergency C-section. It's the only way to save both Olivia and the baby." Ethan's eyes widened with fear. "Is there no other option? Will they be okay?" "It's risky," Ayanna admitted, "but waiting is even riskier. I'll do everything in my power to ensure they both come through this." Ethan nodded, his voice breaking as he said, "Please, do whatever you have to do." Ayanna stepped out to rally the surgical team, only to be intercepted by Dr. Branson. He was a senior physician known for his bureaucratic tendencies and allegiance to the hospital's profit-driven policies. "Dr. Rivers, what are you doing?" Branson demanded, his tone dripping with condescension. "Preparing for an emergency C-section," Ayanna replied, her voice steady but firm. "On whose authority? This isn't the VIP wing. We can't just rearrange the schedule for every urgent case," Branson snapped. Ayanna met his gaze without flinching. "This is a life-or-death situation. If we don't act now, both mother and child could die." Branson scoffed. "You're overstepping, Rivers. Stick to protocol and wait for the attending to approve it." "I am the attending tonight, and I'm making the call," Ayanna shot back, her patience wearing thin. Branson stared at her for a moment before walking away, muttering something about idealistic crusaders. Ayanna didn't have time to care. Lives were on the line. In the operating room, Ayanna worked with precision and focus. The tension was palpable as the team moved swiftly under her leadership. Olivia's condition was precarious, but Ayana's calm demeanor reassured everyone around her. "Scalpel," she called, her voice steady. The procedure was grueling, each second feeling like an eternity. The baby was delivered limp and silent, and for a terrifying moment, the room was filled only with the hum of medical equipment. "Start resuscitation," Ayana ordered, her hands moving deftly as she guided the team. Finally, after what felt like forever, a tiny, piercing cry broke through the silence. A wave of relief swept over the room as the baby boy was stabilized. Ayana turned her attention back to Olivia, ensuring her condition was under control. Hours later, Ayana stood in the recovery room, watching as Ethan held his newborn son. Olivia was still unconscious but stable. Ethan looked up, tears streaming down his face. "You saved them," he whispered. "I don't know how to thank you." Ayana smiled softly. "You don't have to. This is why I do what I do." But as she left the room, the weight of her actions began to sink in. She knew there would be consequences for defying protocol and standing up to Branson. Yet as she walked through the quiet halls of the hospital, Ayana felt no regret. She had made the right choice. Little did she know her decision would set off a chain of events that would test her resolve and reshape her life in ways she could never have imagined. The fallout. The sun barely crept over the horizon as Dr. Ayana Rivers sat in the on-call room, her mind still racing from the events of the night. The adrenaline that had fueled her during the emergency surgery had faded, leaving behind an unsettling mix of exhaustion and apprehension. Olivia Carter and her baby boy were safe, but Ayana knew that her decision to prioritize their lives over hospital protocol would not go unnoticed. Her pager buzzed sharply, interrupting her thoughts. The screen displayed a message. "Report to Dr. Charles Whitmore's office immediately." Ayana's stomach sank. Whitmore, the hospital's director, was notorious for his rigid adherence to policy and obsession with maintaining the hospital's elite image. He was a man who valued profits and reputation above all else, and Ayana knew that defying protocol would not sit well with him. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her white coat and made her way to his office. The hallways were eerily quiet in the early morning hours, the usual bustling energy subdued. As she walked, Ayana mentally prepared herself for the confrontation. When she reached Whitmore's office, his secretary, a polished woman with a steely demeanor, barely looked up from her computer. "Dr. Rivers, you're expected," she said curtly, gesturing toward the heavy oak door. Ayana knocked once before pushing the door open. Whitmore sat behind a massive desk, his expression unreadable. His salt and pepper hair was neatly combed, and his tailored suit spoke of wealth and authority. "Dr. Rivers," he greeted, his voice cold. "Take a seat." Ayana complied, her back straight and hands folded neatly in her lap. She met his gaze head-on, refusing to show any sign of intimidation. "I've reviewed the reports from last night," Whitmore began, his tone measured but edged with disapproval. "You performed an unscheduled emergency C-section on Mrs. Olivia Carter, correct?" "Yes, sir," Ayana confirmed. Her condition was critical. Both she and her baby would have died without immediate intervention. Whitmore's lips pressed into a thin line. "And yet, by doing so, you disrupted the schedule for Mr. Donovan's elective procedure. He's one of our most prominent benefactors." Ayana's jaw tightened. Mr. Donovan's surgery was non-urgent. Mrs. Carter's situation was a matter of life and death. "I made a medical decision based on the urgency of the case." Whitmore leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. "Dr. Rivers, this hospital thrives because of its reputation and the generosity of patients like Mr. Donovan. Your actions jeopardize that reputation. We cannot afford to alienate our VIP clientele." Ayana's voice remained steady, though anger simmered beneath the surface. "With all due respect, sir, this is a hospital, not a luxury hotel. Our priority should always be saving lives, not catering to convenience." Whitmore's eyes narrowed. "Your idealism is admirable but misplaced. Effective immediately, you are suspended pending further review." The words hung in the air, heavy and final. Ayana's heart raced, but she maintained her composure. Suspended, she echoed. For doing my job. For disregarding protocol and undermining the hospital's operational structure, Whitmore clarified. Ayana stood, her resolve hardening. If saving lives is grounds for suspension, then perhaps this hospital needs to reevaluate its priorities. Without waiting for a response, she turned and walked out of the office, her steps purposeful despite the turmoil inside her. She refused to let Whitmore's narrow-mindedness diminish her sense of integrity. The news spreads. By the time Ayana returned to her locker to gather her belongings, whispers had already spread among her colleagues. Nurses and doctors exchanged glances, their expressions a mix of disbelief and outrage. Leela approached her, her face etched with concern. "Ayana, what happened?" "I've been suspended," Ayana said, her voice steady despite the sting of the words. "For saving Olivia and her baby." Leela's eyes widened. "That's outrageous. Everyone knows you did the right thing." "Apparently, doing the right thing doesn't align with hospital politics," Ayana said bitterly. As she packed her things, several colleagues came up to express their support. Dr. Malik, a senior surgeon, shook his head in disbelief. "This place is losing sight of what matters. Don't let them break you, Rivers." Ayana nodded, grateful for the solidarity. "Thanks, Malik. I'll figure something out." As she walked toward the hospital exit, Ayana's phone buzzed with a message from Ethan Carter. "Thank you again, Dr. Rivers. Olivia and the baby are doing well. We owe you everything." The message brought a bittersweet smile to her face. Despite the consequences, she had no regrets about her decision. The community reacts. Later that day, Ayana sat in her small apartment, sipping a cup of tea as she tried to process the whirlwind of events. The suspension weighed heavily on her, but she knew she couldn't dwell on it. She needed to plan her next steps. Her thoughts were interrupted by a knock at the door. When she opened it, she was surprised to find Layla standing there, holding a tablet. "You need to see this," Leela said, stepping inside. Ayana frowned as she took the tablet. A news headline blared across the screen. "Doctor suspended for saving pregnant woman's life. Hospital under fire." The accompanying article detailed Ayana's actions and the hospital's decision to suspend her. "How did this get out?" Ayana asked, stunned. "Ethan Carter went public," Leela explained. "He shared your story on social media, and it's gone viral. People are outraged." Ayana scrolled through the comments, her heart swelling with a mix of gratitude and disbelief. Messages of support poured in from across the country. Patients she had treated over the years shared their stories, praising her compassion and dedication. "You've got a whole movement behind you now," Leela said with a grin. "They're calling for the hospital to reinstate you." Ayana's phone buzzed with notifications. Reporters were reaching out for interviews, and her inbox was flooded with messages from supporters. Despite the chaos, Ayana felt a glimmer of hope. The truth was out, and people were standing by her side. She knew the fight was far from over, but she was ready to face whatever came next. A storm brewing. Back at Street Clare Hospital, Whitmore was facing mounting pressure. The board of directors had been inundated with calls and emails demanding Ayana's reinstatement. Protesters gathered outside the hospital, holding signs that read "Justice for Dr. Rivers" and "Patients over Profits." Whitmore's carefully curated image was crumbling, and whispers of his questionable practices began to circulate. The board launched an internal review, and Whitmore's position suddenly seemed far less secure. Meanwhile, Ayana prepared for the next chapter of her journey. She knew that her fight wasn't just about her career. It was about challenging a broken system and standing up for what was right. As she stood on her balcony, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance, Ayana made a silent vow. She would not be silenced. The battle had only just begun. The turning tide. Ayana Rivers sat at her kitchen table, the early morning light filtering through the window. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, but the cup before her remained untouched. Her thoughts churned like a storm, shifting between disbelief, frustration, and determination. She had worked tirelessly to become a doctor who made a difference, yet here she was, suspended for doing exactly that. The phone vibrated on the table, snapping her out of her reverie. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Debating whether to answer, she finally pressed the green button. Dr. Rivers, this is Maya Peddle from Channel 7 News. We'd love to interview you about your recent suspension and the overwhelming public support you're receiving. Ayanna hesitated. She had never sought the spotlight, preferring her work to speak for itself. But staying silent now felt like surrendering to injustice. I appreciate the interest, Miss Patel, but I need some time to think about it. Of course, Maya said kindly. Just know that your story is making waves. People are rallying behind you. After ending the call, Ayanna browsed the news on her tablet. Headlines blared across multiple outlets. Suspension sparks outrage. Doctor punished for saving lives. Street Clare Hospital under fire for prioritizing profits over patients. Hero Dr. Ayanna Rivers gains national support. Social media was ablaze with posts tagging #JusticeForDrRivers. Testimonials from her former patients flooded the internet, recounting her kindness, skill, and dedication. Ethan Carter's heartfelt video had amassed millions of views, making him a symbol of gratitude and resilience. People care. Ayanna whispered to herself, feeling a flicker of hope. A surprise visitor. Later that afternoon, a knock echoed through her apartment. Ayanna opened the door to find a familiar face, Ethan Carter, holding a bouquet of flowers and a wide grin. "Ethan," she said, surprised. "What are you doing here?" "I figured I owed you a proper thank you," he said, handing her the flowers. "Olivia and the baby are doing great. She wanted to come, but the doctors insisted she rest." Ayanna smiled, her heart warming. "I'm glad to hear they're both okay. That's all that matters to me." Ethan's expression turned serious. "Look, I know you didn't ask for any of this publicity, but I couldn't stay quiet. What they did to you was wrong. I appreciate what you've done," Ayanna said sincerely. "But this fight is bigger than me. It's about changing the way hospitals treat people based on their bank accounts." Ethan nodded. "Then let me help. I have connections in the media and legal world. If you are willing, we can build a case not just for your reinstatement, but for systemic reform." Ayanna's resolve hardened. "I'm in." The media frenzy. Within days, Ayanna's story became a national sensation. She agreed to selective interviews, always steering the conversation toward the need for ethical healthcare practices. Her calm yet passionate demeanor resonated with viewers, further cementing her as a symbol of integrity. Meanwhile, protests outside Street Clare Hospital grew larger and louder. The hospital board, once content to support Whitmore, began to waver under the weight of public scrutiny. Inside the hospital, staff morale was at an all-time low. Nurses and doctors whispered about Whitmore's impending downfall, emboldened by Ayanna's courage. Even Leela reported that more employees were speaking out about unethical practices. Whitmore, however, clung stubbornly to his position, convinced that the storm would pass. A legal twist. Ethan's legal team, led by a formidable attorney named Jasmine Lee, worked tirelessly to build a case. They uncovered disturbing patterns of discrimination, profit-driven decisions, and unjust disciplinary actions at Street Clare Hospital. One afternoon, Jasmine called Ayanna with an update. "We found something big," she said. "There's evidence that Whitmore covered up several incidents where patients suffered due to delayed care in favor of VIP clients. If this goes public, he's finished." Ayanna's heart raced. "Do we have enough to expose him legally?" "Absolutely," Jasmine confirmed. "But I need your permission to move forward." "Do it," Ayanna said without hesitation. "This isn't just about me anymore. It's about every patient who was treated as less important." Whitmore's downfall. The bombshell report hit the media like an earthquake. News outlets broadcast the damning evidence against Whitmore, detailing how his greed had jeopardized countless lives. Patient families came forward with harrowing stories, adding fuel to the fire. The hospital board, desperate to salvage their reputation, called an emergency meeting. By the end of the day, Whitmore was ousted from his position. Ayanna received the news while sitting on a park bench, the cool breeze rustling the leaves around her. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jasmine. "It's done. Whitmore is out. The board wants to meet with you." A triumphant return. 2 days later, Ayanna stood before the hospital board. The atmosphere was tense, but Ayanna felt no fear. She had faced far greater challenges and emerged stronger. "Dr. Rivers," the chairman began, "we deeply regret the actions taken against you. The board has unanimously decided to reinstate you with full honors and compensation for lost time." "Thank you," Ayanna said calmly. "But reinstatement isn't enough. Changes need to be made to ensure that no doctor is ever punished for prioritizing patient care." The chairman nodded solemnly. "We agree. We're implementing new policies to address these issues, and we'd like your input." Ayanna's heart swelled with a sense of justice. "I'd be honored to help." A new beginning. As Ayanna walked through the hospital doors once more, staff members greeted her with applause and smiles. Leela hugged her tightly, tears in her eyes. "You did it," Leela whispered. "You changed everything." Ayanna smiled. "We all did." Later that evening, as she stood by Olivia Carter's bedside, watching the baby sleep peacefully, Ayanna felt a profound sense of fulfillment. "You're a hero, Dr. Rivers," Olivia said softly. Ayanna shook her head. "I'm just someone who believes in doing what's right." But deep down, she knew that belief had sparked a revolution, one that would ripple far beyond the walls of Street Clare Hospital. The seeds of change. The sun dipped low over the city skyline as Ayanna Rivers stood on the balcony of her apartment, watching the amber hues fade into twilight. The events of the past weeks had been a whirlwind of media attention, legal battles, and triumphs. Whitmore's downfall was a victory, but Ayanna knew that real change was just beginning. Her phone buzzed on the table, interrupting her thoughts. It was a text from Jasmine Lee, the fierce attorney who had been instrumental in bringing Whitmore to justice. "We need to meet. There's something you should see." Curiosity piqued. Ayanna replied quickly. "When and where?" "Tomorrow morning at my office. 9 a.m. Ayanna set her phone down, a sense of anticipation settling over her. Jasmine was always direct. Whatever she had found was bound to be significant. The hidden files. The next morning, Ayanna walked into Jasmine's sleek downtown office. The floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the bustling city below. Jasmine greeted her with a firm handshake and a determined glint in her eyes. "Thanks for coming," Jasmine said, leading Ayanna to a conference table scattered with documents and digital files. "We've uncovered more evidence during our investigation of Whitmore's tenure at Street Clare Hospital." Ayanna frowned. "What kind of evidence?" Jasmine tapped on a tablet, bringing up a series of files. Financial records, patient reports, and internal emails. Whitmore wasn't just prioritizing VIP clients. He was funneling hospital funds into shell companies and accepting bribes to fast-track elective procedures for wealthy patients. Ayanna's eyes widened. "That's criminal. Have you reported this to the authorities?" "We're in the process," Jasmine confirmed. "But there's more. Several high-ranking administrators were complicit. This corruption runs deeper than we initially thought." Ayanna's stomach churned. She had always suspected that greed influenced hospital policies, but seeing the evidence laid bare was infuriating. "What do you need from me?" Ayanna asked, her voice resolute. "Your voice," Jasmine said. "You've become a symbol of integrity and reform. If you speak out, people will listen. We need public pressure to ensure a thorough investigation and systemic change." Ayanna nodded. "I'm in." A public stand. That evening, Ayanna sat in front of her computer, drafting a statement. She wanted her words to be honest, powerful, and unwavering. After several revisions, she settled on the final version. Healthcare should be about compassion, integrity, and saving lives, not profits and corruption. The revelations about Street Clare Hospital are deeply troubling, but they represent a systemic issue that extends beyond one institution. We must demand accountability and work together to build a healthcare system that prioritizes people over profits. She posted the statement on social media, accompanied by links to the evidence Jasmine had provided. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Messages of support poured in, along with calls for a nationwide investigation into hospital practices. News outlets picked up the story, and Ayanna found herself at the center of a growing movement for healthcare reform. The ripple effect. As the days turned into weeks, the impact of Ayanna's stand became increasingly evident. Hospitals across the country faced heightened scrutiny, with whistleblowers coming forward to expose unethical practices. Street Clare Hospital underwent a complete overhaul under new leadership, implementing transparent policies and prioritizing patient care. Ayanna played a key role in shaping these changes, serving as a consultant to the board. One afternoon, as she walked through the hospital corridors, now filled with a renewed sense of purpose, she was approached by a young medical student. "Dr. Rivers," the student said nervously, "I just wanted to say that you're the reason I chose this hospital for my training. Your story inspired me to be a doctor who makes a difference." Ayanna smiled warmly. "Thank you. Just remember, being a good doctor isn't about fame or recognition. It's about doing what's right, even when it's hard." A community united. The support from the community remained unwavering. Patients, doctors, and activists came together to push for legislative changes that would hold hospitals accountable for unethical practices. Ayanna often spoke at events, sharing her experiences and advocating for reform. One evening, after a particularly moving speech, Olivia Carter and her husband Ethan approached Ayanna. Their baby, now a few months old, gurgled happily in Olivia's arms. "Dr. Rivers," Olivia said, her eyes shining with gratitude, "we can never thank you enough for what you did for our family." "You already have," Ayanna said gently. "Your courage to speak out helped spark this change." Ethan nodded. "We're proud to stand by you. You've inspired so many people." An unexpected offer. As the movement gained momentum, Ayanna received an unexpected call from the dean of a prestigious medical school. "Dr. Rivers," the dean said, "we've been following your work and advocacy. Your dedication to ethical healthcare is exactly what we need to inspire the next generation of doctors. We'd like to offer you a position as a professor and advisor for our medical ethics program." Ayanna was stunned. Teaching had never been part of her plan, but the opportunity to shape young minds and instill a sense of integrity in future doctors was too meaningful to pass up. "I'm honored," she said. "I'd be happy to accept." A legacy of hope. On her first day as a professor, Ayanna stood before a lecture hall filled with eager students. As she spoke about the importance of compassion, courage, and ethical decision-making, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Her journey had been filled with challenges, but it had led her to this moment, a place where she could inspire others to carry the torch of justice and integrity. As the lecture concluded, a student raised his hand. "Dr. Rivers, do you think one person can really change the system?" Ayanna smiled, her voice steady and confident. "One person can start a ripple, but it takes all of us working together to create a wave." The room erupted into applause, and Ayanna knew that the seeds of change she had planted would continue to grow, nurturing a future where healthcare truly served humanity. A new dawn. Ayanna Rivers stood by the window of her new office at the university's medical school, watching students hurry across the campus green. Their youthful energy filled the air with hope and excitement, a stark contrast to the heavy battles she had fought in recent months. She had traded the chaotic world of hospital shifts for the quieter, but no less impactful, realm of teaching. Her decision to join the faculty had been met with widespread support. Students, inspired by her story and unwavering advocacy for ethical healthcare, eagerly signed up for her lectures on medical ethics and patient care. Yet, Ayanna knew her fight was far from over. There was still much to be done. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. "Come in," she called. The door opened to reveal Jasmine Lee, the relentless attorney who had become both a colleague and a trusted friend. "You settling in okay?" Jasmine asked, taking a seat across from Ayanna's desk. Slowly but surely, Ayanna replied with a smile. "What brings you here?" Jasmine's expression turned serious. "I have news. The federal investigation into hospital corruption has expanded. They want you to testify before Congress about your experiences at Street Claire and the reforms you've helped implement." Ayanna's heart skipped a beat. "Testify? That's massive." "It is," Jasmine agreed. "But your voice is powerful, Ayanna. This is your chance to influence national policy." Ayanna took a deep breath. "Then I'll do it." Preparing for the spotlight. Over the following weeks, Ayanna worked tirelessly with Jasmine and a team of legal experts to prepare her testimony. They reviewed countless documents, crafted key talking points, and anticipated the questions lawmakers might ask. Despite her nerves, Ayanna felt a deep sense of purpose. This was a rare opportunity to advocate for meaningful change on a national stage. One evening, as she practiced her speech in front of a mirror, memories of her early days as a doctor flooded back. She thought of the patients who had trusted her, the long nights spent fighting for their well-being, and the moments when bureaucracy had threatened to undermine her work. "This is for them," she whispered to herself, "for every patient who deserves better." The congressional hearing. The day of the hearing arrived. The grand hall buzzed with activity as lawmakers, reporters, and spectators filled the room. Ayanna sat at a long table, flanked by Jasmine and other experts. Cameras flashed as the committee chair called the session to order. "Dr. Rivers," the chair began, "thank you for being here today. Please share your experiences and insights with the committee." Ayanna's voice was steady as she recounted the events at Street Claire Hospital, the corruption she had witnessed, and the reforms she had fought for. She spoke passionately about the need for patient-centered care, transparency, and accountability in healthcare institutions. "The system is broken," Ayanna said firmly, "but it can be fixed. We need policies that prioritize compassion over profits, and we must empower healthcare professionals to do what's right without fear of retaliation." Her testimony was met with thoughtful nods from some lawmakers and skeptical glances from others. But Ayanna held her ground, answering every question with poise and conviction. A ripple effect. Following the hearing, Ayanna's testimony made headlines across the nation. Her words resonated with people from all walks of life, sparking renewed calls for healthcare reform. Public pressure mounted, and lawmakers introduced new legislation aimed at protecting whistleblowers, increasing hospital transparency, and prioritizing patient care. Ayanna became a sought-after speaker at conferences and events, her name synonymous with integrity and courage in the medical field. Personal triumphs. Despite her public advocacy, Ayanna remained deeply connected to her roots as a doctor. She volunteered at community clinics on weekends, providing care to underserved populations. One Saturday afternoon, as she finished examining a young boy with a persistent cough, his mother clasped her hands together. "Thank you, Dr. Rivers," the woman said, tears in her eyes. "We can't afford much, but you treated us with dignity." Ayanna smiled gently. Everyone deserves that. Later that evening, Ayanna received a surprise visit from Olivia and Ethan Carter. Their baby, now a bubbly toddler, toddled toward Ayanna with an infectious giggle. "Look at her," Olivia said proudly. "She's growing up strong and healthy because of you." Ayanna knelt down to hug the child. "She's a fighter, just like her parents." Ethan nodded. "We'll always be grateful, Ayanna. You changed our lives." An unbreakable legacy. As time went on, Ayanna's influence continued to grow. Her students carried her teachings into hospitals and clinics across the country, embodying the values she had fought so hard to uphold. One evening, after a long day of lectures and meetings, Ayanna sat in her office, reflecting on her journey. Jasmine's words echoed in her mind. "Your voice is powerful." But Ayanna knew it wasn't just her voice. It was the collective strength of every patient, doctor, and advocate who believed in a better future. Her phone buzzed with a message from Jasmine. The new healthcare reform bill just passed. "We did it." A smile spread across Ayanna's face. Victory was sweet, but the true reward was knowing that countless lives would be better because of their efforts. As she stood by the window, watching the city lights flicker like stars, Ayanna felt a profound sense of peace. The path had been difficult, but it had led to a brighter, more just future. And Ayanna Rivers, the doctor who had once been fired for doing the right thing, had become a beacon of hope and change, a legacy that would endure for generations to come. The circle of justice. A soft drizzle fell over the city as Ayanna Rivers made her way through the bustling downtown square. The damp air carried the scent of fresh rain and optimism, a fitting backdrop for what was to be a monumental day. Today marked the official launch of the National Patient Rights and Ethical Care Initiative, a comprehensive healthcare reform movement born from Ayanna's fight for justice. Lawmakers, healthcare professionals, activists, and community leaders had gathered to celebrate the progress they had made. As she approached the grand steps of City Hall, Jasmine Lee appeared beside her, holding a thick portfolio of documents. "Ready for your speech?" Jasmine asked with a knowing smile. Ayanna exhaled deeply. "As ready as I'll ever be." "You've earned this moment, Ayanna, and so much more." Ayanna smiled. Jasmine had been her fiercest ally through the storm, and their friendship had only deepened over time. Together, they climbed the steps, where a podium awaited. Banners with the slogan "Healthcare with Heart" fluttered in the breeze. The crowd below buzzed with anticipation. A speech from the heart. Ayanna adjusted the microphone, her eyes scanning the sea of faces. Many of them had stood by her during the darkest times. Patients, colleagues, and supporters who believed in her cause. "Good afternoon," she began, her voice strong and steady. "Today is more than just a celebration. It's a testament to the power of courage, resilience, and collective action." The crowd erupted in applause. Ayanna waited for the noise to settle before continuing. "When I first spoke out against the corruption at Street Clare Hospital, I was afraid. Afraid of losing my career, my reputation, and my ability to care for patients. But what I found was that truth has a power far greater than fear." Her voice grew more impassioned. "Together, we have proven that healthcare can be ethical, compassionate, and just. We've shown that one voice can spark change, but many voices can create a revolution." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the audience. "This is just the beginning. We must remain vigilant and committed to holding ourselves and our institutions accountable, because every patient deserves dignity, respect, and care." As Ayanna concluded her speech, the crowd erupted into a standing ovation. Tears welled in her eyes as she stepped back from the podium, overwhelmed by the support and validation of her journey. A personal milestone. Later that evening, Ayanna hosted a small gathering at her home to celebrate with friends and allies. The warm glow of string lights illuminated the backyard, where guests mingled and shared stories. Olivia and Ethan Carter were there with their now toddling daughter, who giggled as she chased after fireflies. Jasmine raised a glass, her voice cutting through the cheerful chatter. "To Ayanna," Jasmine declared, "whose courage and compassion have changed the world for the better." The group clinked glasses, their smiles wide and genuine. As the night wore on, Ayanna found herself sitting by a fire pit, lost in thought. Jasmine joined her, a knowing look in her eyes. "Penny, for your thoughts?" Jasmine asked. "I was just thinking about how far we've come," Ayanna admitted, "but there's still so much work to do." "There always will be," Jasmine said, "but if anyone's up for the challenge, it's you." Ayanna smiled. "Thanks for always believing in me." "Always," Jasmine affirmed. The unexpected twist. The next morning, Ayanna received a letter marked with the seal of the Department of Justice. Her pulse quickened as she opened it. The letter was brief but carried profound weight. Dr. Ayanna Rivers, in recognition of your contributions to healthcare reform and your bravery in exposing corruption, the Department of Justice, in collaboration with the National Medical Ethics Council, hereby appoints you as a special advisor on healthcare integrity and policy. Ayanna's breath caught in her throat. It was a position that would allow her to influence healthcare policy on a national level, a chance to shape the future she had always dreamed of. She dialed Jasmine immediately. "You won't believe this," she said, reading the letter aloud. Jasmine laughed. "Of course they want you. You're a force to be reckoned with." Ayanna's heart swelled with gratitude. "This is for all of us, Jasmine. For every patient, every doctor, and every person who believes in doing what's right." A legacy cemented. Months later, Ayanna stood in the halls of Congress once again, this time as an advisor. Her influence had already led to the creation of new guidelines for ethical patient care, and her voice was instrumental in drafting additional reforms. Her work extended beyond legislation. Ayanna continued to teach at the university, inspiring a new generation of doctors to prioritize compassion and integrity. Her students often said that her lectures were transformative, blending clinical knowledge with profound life lessons. One afternoon, as she walked through the campus, a student approached her hesitantly. "Dr. Rivers," the student said, "I just wanted to say that your story changed my life. I was thinking of giving up on medical school, but you reminded me why I wanted to be a doctor in the first place." Ayanna's heart warmed. "That's the best thing I could ever hear. Keep going. You'll make a difference." The final chapter. Years later, Ayanna stood on the same steps of City Hall, where she had once addressed a crowd demanding change. This time, she was the keynote speaker for a national healthcare summit celebrating a decade of reforms. Her hair had silvered at the temples, but her spirit was as fierce as ever. As she spoke, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here, the challenges, the victories, and the people who had stood by her side. As the crowd rose to its feet in applause, Ayanna felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had come full circle, from a doctor fired for doing the right thing to a national leader in healthcare reform. Ayanna Rivers had become a symbol of justice, compassion, and resilience, a legacy that would inspire generations to come. And as she looked out at the faces of those who believed in her vision, she knew one thing for certain. The fight for justice and dignity in healthcare would never end, but neither would the hope that fueled it.